This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Hello and welcome to the Market Musings podcast here on a Friday. Unbelievably, the week has gone, I think, for me, Alan, scarily quickly. I don't know why. Maybe it's because, I don't know, I'm not as busy as normal. It's still a little bit quiet on the market, some people talking. So I think when you're busy, you tend to feel, oh, I'm glad it's Friday. But actually, I'm quite surprised yesterday. I was like, gee, it's Friday tomorrow. I don't know how you feel.
No, I agree, Mark. It's been a quietish week. I think we've had a few things to do and a few sort of interviews and meetings and bits and pieces. But it's generally speaking, you always expect the first short week to be quiet because of course people are coming back from holiday. But this is the first full week back. I mean, of course, the FTSE's blasting ahead regardless and pushing close to its all-time highs at the moment. I think at the open this morning we were up to 7840, so about 40 points off the all-time high. So
this is true.
That's encouraging, but there's it's almost like the phony war, isn't it? It's pushing ahead. It's all nice and good, but there's very little substance to back it up.
Yeah, this is true, and of course, gold as well doing well as well, back up at 1900, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Around that level. But yeah, you're right. There's still seems to be a lack of sort of action on the ground. Let's say, in terms of developments at companies or people coming on and chatting. There are a few who stand out, but it's still yet to get going really properly. But anyway, all we can do is carry on as usual.
Carry on, keep calm, carry on.
Carry on regardless. So today you're going to be talking to us about an opportunity that's coming to market, hopefully soon. That's Fulcrum Metals, who have their projects over in Canada, and they are in pre-IPO, aren't they, at the moment? And then Blencowe as well, who we've spoken about before, so we'll get a bit of an update on Blencowe and what's going on at the Orem Cross, if I remember correctly, the Orem Cross Graphite project.
The Orem Cross Graphite project, which has just recently completed the PFS and has some bulk sampling exported to China. So it's a really exciting development and at a key stage in its evolution. And I think we're talking about companies exploding into value or valuations exploding into life. I think Blencowe is on the cusp of that, and certainly, there was a note put out by the broker First Equity early this week, which I think really sums up where the company's at right now in terms of its valuation. So we'll come to that shortly. But let's look at Fulcrum Metals first of all. This is, of course, we talked about IPOs and the successful IPOs during 2022. First Class Metals won that hands down, won the UK Investor Magazine Award for Best IPO in 2022. And I think really showed how IPOs should be executed in the current market. Came to market with a very modest valuation, 6.5 million at 10p. And of course, we know the shares have pushed as high as 17p, currently around the 14p mark. So it's had a very good run. And of course, an awful lot of news flow too. And there was an announcement yesterday from the company, upgrades on the Pickle Lake sampling. And of course, Pickle Lake is in the Schreiber Hemlo Gold Belt. And that is where Fulcrum Metals also has its raft of projects. So this is really another company from the same region. And of course, the Schreiber Hemlo Gold Belt needs no introduction. It's a hugely fertile piece of territory for gold mining companies, central to which we have of course, the Barrick Hemlo Gold Mine, which is a producing mine, has produced thousands of tons of gold over the past few years. A number of regional transactions have taken place recently. Of course, the 1.8 billion cash and shares takeover of Great Bear Resources by Kinross, that's Northern Ontario, a $240 million streaming deal for Generation Mining by Wheaton Precious Metals, and then of course a Nomad royalty deal, the 95 million gold purchase agreement with a subsidiary of Orion Mine Finance for a greenstone gold project in Ontario. And that's just a sample of some of the action and activities that are taking place within this region. So Fulcrum Metals, I guess we could say, has probably evolved as a result of some work that Panther Metals did there initially. And of course, listeners will remember Darren Hazelwood talking about the Big Bear project, which is a gold and precious metals project smack bang in the middle of the Schreiber Hemlo Gold Belt. The company have put out, Fulcrum Metals have just put out a very good presentation. So I have that presentation. I know Stopbox do too, but if you contact the company directly, they will send it out to you. So the company is planning an IPO Q1 this year. In fact, I think it's going to be as early as the end of this month, but I've not yet had an absolute date back. So the company's raising 3 million in the run up to the IPO. Seed funding was raised at 10.3p. The company raised 242,000 with 52,000 raised from directors. So that's always very significant in my book. Directors have skin in the game. The company also undertook a pre-IPO raised a further 445,000, including 100,000 convertible loan note from directors. And the board here includes Ryan Mee, who along with Aidan O'Hara is co-founder of the Fulcrum Metals project. Ryan Mee is chief executive, and some people say he's a Darren Hazelwood Mark II, but of course that will be down to interpretation and opinion. And Aidan O'Hara, of course, is in charge of corporate development along with Ryan. I should say as well that if he is a Darren Hazelwood Mark II, that bodes very well for the company because, of course, Darren, of course, has blazed a trail with Panther Metals since its IPO and since his own personal evolution from investor into chief executive and director at Panther. Non-exec chairman at Fulcrum Metals is Clive Garston, many years experience within the city, and John Hamilton, likewise, is the group chief finance officer. So when the company comes to market, it will have the enlarged share capital will see Panther Metals a 20% shareholder in the assets, and that to me is hugely significant. Of course, Panther have done very well with the assets in Australia, so they'll continue to be shareholders here. When the company comes to market, the placing price will be 17.5 pence, giving the company a market capitalization of 8.8 million. So again, a very modest capitalization for a company with the range of projects that I'm about to go through. So we come to the Schreiber Hemlo Gold Belt. Of course, that's the focus for the company's assets, and the flagship assets for the group are, of course, the Big Bear project, and this is the Big Bear project is located central within the Schreiber Gold Belt. It's also the company also has the Jackfish project, and this is a key project for the group going forward as well. Jackfish includes the Beaver Trap and Carrot Lake projects at Winston Lake. Now, all of these assets are gold and base metal assets, and indeed with Big Bear and Jackfish, these two projects are just 14 kilometers apart, covering a square kilometerage of 113 square kilometers. So very close together, so easy to manage, easy to work. Put a team on the ground there, and they can be effectively crossing from one to another within the day. Already from the Big Bear and Jackfish assets, the company have identified high-grade gold, rock, and soil samples. Average grade up 1.4 ounces of gold per ton. So that's hugely impressive. And the funds raised, of course, going forward, 1.43 million will be used purely for exploration going forward. And what the company intends to do for Big Bear is to undertake further surveys, modelling, sampling, and drilling at Schreiber, and of course undertaking aeromagnetic and magnetic target work to identify further drill targets for next year. With Jackfish, again, the money will be used to on surveys used to explore the eastern end of the Terence Bay batholith, which of course is a very prominent feature. Now the thing is, I'm trying to articulate the information that's on the maps within the project presentations. So I would very much recommend listeners wanting to know more about this should get a copy of the presentation. It's very detailed, and I'm just literally outlining the key bullet points from here. So of course, with Jackfish, there's also the Wawa Dog Lake project, which is prospective for gold and base metals, and the Dai Hazara project at Takiri Lake, which is prospective for base metals. So those are that's the key focus for the company in Ontario. We then move west to Saskatchewan, and of course the Athabasca Basin, where of course we know Power Metal have significant interest there with its uranium assets. So two key assets here: the Charlotte Needy Lake project, which is prospective for uranium and gold, and the Fontaine Lake project, which is prospective for uranium and rare earth metals. So again, metals which are highly important this year, particularly uranium. Of course, when I spoke to Ken Batch at Brand Comms a couple of weeks ago, Ken highlighted that uranium, there will be a material shortage of that metal during 2023. So literally the race is on, and I'm sure Fulcrum Metals will be prioritizing this as they go forward, along with, of course, companies like Power Metal with their uranium assets and the other companies we've spoken about. So this is all happening very soon, and I'm sure Ryan and his team will take a leaf out of the First Class Metals playbook, and that is to literally have news flow developments and progress updates that will all be value add to the investment proposition within the very near future. And this is how you bring a company like this to market. But I think given the price of the assets the company is seeking, of course, Mark, we spoke about the gold price just now. Given the price of gold, I think this is going to be a bumper year for the commodity markets and also the junior exploration sector as well. And certainly a company like Fulcrum Metals IPOing into this market, I think they've timed it very well. And certainly the assets and the asset base for the group looks very exciting indeed. And I look forward to hearing from the company once the IPO takes place.
Indeed. Well, thank you for that, Alan. Thank you for presenting that in a very succinct manner. There's lots of different projects there, all out in Canada, covering, as you say, gold, base metals, uranium, and rare earths. And followers of Panther Metals will be familiar, I'm sure, with that Big Bear project that was vended into Fulcrum. They're away from Panther. So, yeah, let's see. It was supposed to be, what was it supposed to be sort of the next month? Was that the target date for the IPO?
Well, the presentation says listing on AIM in January.
In January, yeah.
So my guess is that may be put back a bit, but I think I'm sure this will take place very soon. Everything's in place. The documentation, the broker Clear Capital Markets appointed, the Nomad, of course, is Allenby, and everything's in place for the company to hit the ground running. So if it's a couple of weeks off, then I'm sure we'll hear about it very soon. But no doubt you'll be speaking to Ryan in the near future. So Ryan can update if there have indeed been any changes.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure. And if it's delayed by a few weeks, then that's nothing out of the ordinary. And yeah, we'll be catching up with Ryan. I spoke to him. I think it was last week. We got a bit of a catch up on what was going on, and there was an article in one. I think it was the Sunday. It was one of the Sunday papers. I can't remember which one, which talked about the upcoming IPO as well. So they're definitely getting out there and talking about it with a fair bit of confidence. So as soon as they actually do get on the market, yeah, the plan was to see if they can mimic first-class metals, as you say, with who know how to IPO a company and hit the ground running. And I'll certainly be following up with Ryan there to see how those early days and weeks are going once they do get on the market and can get active. So yeah, one to look out for. But thank you for that, Alan. So then Blencowe, then of course, graphite in which country is it? I forget.
So Blencowe Resources shares currently trading at 5.3p with a market capitalization of just on 10 million. As you rightly say, Mark, it's the Oran Cross graphite project in Uganda. Now, Uganda is a fairly benign political regime and also has easy access to market with good road and rail links to ports on both certainly on the east coast. But the Ugandan government have been particularly supportive of Blencowe in their efforts to develop this project. And as with any major project, of course, we speak about Fulcrum, that's very much in the early stage. So if they develop the Big Bear or the Jackfish project, and they then realize that they do have a significant asset there, with that's confirmed and revealed by the further exploration. In the first instance, they will conduct a preliminary economic assessment. Of course, that's just looking at the project, looking at the financial aspect. Is it feasible? What's the cost of the commodity trends going forward? The cost of getting the stuff out of the ground, getting it processed on site, getting it to market. Are there processing centers nearby that could be utilized? All of that stuff forms part of the PA. So you have the PA. Now with Oran Cross, it's unusual, well, remarkable, in fact. The Blencowe has identified several key points within the project because the size of the area is absolutely huge. It's a vast area. It's some 2,000 square miles, and within parts of this area, jumbo, what's referred to as flake graphite, is literally sticking out of the ground. So you could effectively drive a tractor and harrow across the ground and pull the stuff out of the ground. So it's like anything. When you've got this abundance of riches, where do you start? Well, you have to sort of locate the key area within the center, and of course, identify the two key areas. And the initial areas were identified very close to the existing works that the existing camp that the company had set up. So it's identified two key areas, and the samples, those two areas are, of course, Camp Low, which was the original camp, and the northern syncline deposits. And what it's done, it's developed these two deposits and taken samples, and those samples have been analysed by SGS in Canada, and they've identified through metallurgical test work that the jumbo flake graphite has been distilled down to a pure concentrate of around 96 to 90% total graphite content, which is incredibly important, because that means it has very low level of impurities, and the recovery ratio is incredibly high. So of course that I don't think I need to explain to listeners the demand for graphite. What going forward, of course, it's a key part of the battery metals industry. Graphite makes up to 40% of the weight of and content of a lithium-ion battery, but it also has a multitude of other uses. For example, in furnaces and in steel making, graphite lines the cauldron. It's of course used as a fire retardant material and fire retardant applications across a multitude of different applications. So the demand for graphite is absolutely huge. Going forward, Blencowe, of course, have then developed from the PEA to the next level, which is the preliminary feasibility study, the PFS. And in doing so, a number of key data points were established, notably the NPV number, the net present value post-tax, which increased by 52% on the PEA to 482 million. I should say that that was based on the interest rates at the time. With the increase in interest rates, it was pointed out to me by the managing director, Mike Ralston, that would reduce. So the number's probably closer to about 402, 403 million at the moment. So that is being conservative, and it's also keeping with the current increase in interest rates. What the PFS also established was that Ormcross has a 14-year mine life, low operating costs, the forward operating base of Mombasa Port makes it one of the lowest cost graphite projects worldwide. And the project currently over a 14-year mine life is expected to deliver EBITDA of 1.4 billion US dollars. And of course, this is just based on those 2 points, the northern syncline and Camp Lode. Bearing in mind the 2,000 square mile area, it's quite conceivable that once the DFS has been completed at the Camp Lode northern syncline, Blencowe could go on and do it again at other points across the Ormcross graphite territory. So it's hugely exciting, and certainly initially it would seem almost limitless in terms of its potential. So we've talked about the PFS. There have been further developments since the PFS, notably an offtake agreement with Jilin, a Chinese company. And in here, we had an unprecedented move from the Ugandan government to support the development of the project. A landmark one-off permit was given to Blencowe to export bulk sample graphite from Ormcross for key final testing by Jilin in China. And, that's a huge endorsement by any standards. It also shows the government completely behind the project, fully supportive of Ormcross, and seeing the potential globally that the project has. And Cameron Pearce, the chairman, said at that point, of course, China is currently the most mature graphite market. So an off-taker relationship there, it would be very, very valuable to us, given the highly attractive economics already established at Ormcross through the PFS that I've just discussed. So the Bolt trial, of course, will await the results from that. But if that's successful, then the sky literally is the limit. The company has announced its annual results today. Very strong sort of prospects for the year going forward. And of course, it's that metallurgical test work that's been so key in advancing it. And I think it was summed up. The broker First Equity put a note out to its clients earlier on this week, once the announcement had been made by Blencowe regarding the bulk testing program. And the company said that based on these events, the market capitalization of 10 million simply doesn't reflect the progress being made at Ormcross and the advanced nature of the project. several other significant events happened in terms of the investor base a few months ago. Jangada Mines came in and increased its stake in the company from 2% to 9.5%. And RAB Capital and JUB Capital also increased their stakes, respectively, to maintain their 10% and 8% stake, respectively, in the company. So the company raised further money at that point, and of course is now fully funded for the DFS, the definitive feasibility study, which is underway. And once the definitive feasibility study is complete, then it will tick all the boxes, and the company can then raise the money. And I think that form of support could come in from Jilin or other companies. We've seen with other projects. Of course, once we get to DFS, then the big boys come in, offer to partner and put the money in. So it's the team then have to decide who to go with. But on the strength of where the project is now, First Equity improved their valuation on price target to their clients to 64p, and this is compared to the current 5p share price. So either way, there's some fantastic upside on offer. Whether it'll take place straight away or whether the market will wait and see how the bulk testing results look from Jilin when those are reported back remains to be seen. But I think given where the share price is now, this is one that you could buy to tuck away. The hard yards have already been done. The PA has been completed. The PFS has been completed. Interest from third parties. Bulk testing underway. Metallurgical testing very successful. So everything has been in place, along with the support from the Ugandan government, which is hugely significant at this juncture. And I think Blencowe is in for a very exciting year, and shareholders who got in very early on are set for a really strong year.
Well, you can certainly see the progress, can't you? I know we've spoken about this project before when it was almost just discovered, and you told me about the tractor and harrow analogy. You go along the ground and literally pick up these flakes of graphite, and the sheer size of the project as well compared to the actual area where Blencowe are conducting their studies at the moment. So the DFS is due. Do you know when it's due, Alan? Is it due this year?
It's due this year, yeah.
It's due this year. Okay.
It's due this year. Well, it's already underway. I mean, as soon as the PFS was announced September last year, and the DFS was commenced almost immediately after that. So the funds were raised to complete that. So that's well underway, and I think I'm sure we'll get progress updates from the team on the DFS as we go forward. But equally, we'll be waiting to get those bulk testing results back from Jilin China. And I would imagine if those results are good, then given the race that's now on, it seems to secure assets like this, I would imagine that a partnership agreement will come in shortly after that. So that 64 pence price target from First Equity, whilst it might seem fantastic compared to the current share price to 5p, as we have seen, companies like Blencowe, once those key value inflection points have been ticked, then the share price can move forward very rapidly indeed. And it's a very exciting time.
Indeed. And you said the PEA gave, what was it, an NPV of 482 million? Was that right? Or
the PFS was up 52% on the PEAs. So the PFS gave a net present value of 482 million.
Okay.
But Mike Ralston asked me to point out, and this is significant, given the increase in interest rates, that's effectively fallen slightly. So it's now 402 million.
Okay.
But that depends on whether an investor would view that as a material issue or not. But Mike is a very cautious man, and I think I think that's a very pragmatic and cautious view to take going forward. So,
well, indeed. I mean, you've got if you say it's 402 million, what's the market cap at the minute? 10 million?
They're 10 million. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that First Equity research node of 64 was it pence per share compared to 5. Maybe it's not so unrealistic. I wonder what's holding it back then. Any ideas?
I think as with anything, investors or the markets are It's probably a combination of the fact that you and I have been evangelizing about this for several years, and I've spoken on other channels, interviewed myself, and Mike's been out there talking about the project for the last few years. But I think it takes time, that those phases have to be gone through. And I think as we approach DFS, once we get those results back, of course, investing into mining stocks is a risky business. And we spoke about Fulcrum just now, who are right at the start of that evolutionary curve. Blencowe are very much, toward the latter end of it. But the value hasn't, or the appreciation of value by the markets hasn't kicked in yet. And I think it'll take factors like the bulk testing, independent confirmation. Yep, this is great. We want to buy it. We want to come in and partner with you on this. We'll provide funding to develop the mine and get the stuff out of the ground. And of course, the support from the Ugandan government is hugely significant there too. We've heard sort of over in years gone by where projects have got so far, and then the government have stepped in and refused to let it progress unless it can have a big chunk of the company, and that doesn't really happen so much nowadays. But I think Uganda is a stable, benign regime, and certainly the team there have met the Ugandan ministers and worked closely with them, and we've seen it, in other countries in Africa too. For example, Sovereign Metals Kasia project, the Ruta project in Malawi, the Malawian minister got up at an international conference and was speaking. I think it was the United Nations, and was speaking about the potential of the Kasia project. So there's, I think the African nations are realizing just what they have in the ground there now, and they're working with the companies to ensure it gets to market. And the net effect of that, of course, is it creates employment, it improves employment prospects, it improves health, education, it improves the standard of that country and that region. So that's why the projects like this are hugely important.
Indeed. Well, that certainly sounds like a company to watch this year, Alan, particularly as it heads towards the all-important DFS. So thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on Blencowe, and of course talking to us there, introducing us to the potential investment case for Fulcrum Metals. So I wish you a pleasant weekend, Alan, and we'll speak again next week.
Thanks very much, Mark. You too.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.